wonderful speech. I'm very proud of our students. Distinguished guests, members of the class 2023, parents, colleagues, and everyone who has worked for the first cohort of NYU Shanghai students, graduates team from our newborn campus, and everyone who could luckily call each other 同学 over the last 4 years. Good afternoon and good commencement. You may be wondering why I use the Chinese word 同学, which literally means learning together. As far as I know, there seems to be no English word exactly expressing this meaning. When Cai Yuanpei, the legendary president of the Peking University of the 1910s and 1920s, invited Liang Shuming, one of the most important Chinese philosophers in my mind in the 20th century, to teach Indian philosophy at the Beida at the age of 25. Cai managed to persuade the hesitating Liang by saying this. He said, "You may well come to learn together with others rather than to teach others." 你不要是当老师来教人，你当是来共同学习好了。Learning, of course, is different from teaching. But the best way to learn is to teach, in my view. And many of you, I'm pretty sure, are now particularly proud of at least one of your classroom presentations over the past 4 years. Learning is certainly also different from research. But the best way to learn is to do research. That's also my experience. That is why, I suppose, you all have known a typical NYU Shanghai professor would urge you to provide answers to academic questions as a result of your own reasoning, rather than results of searching on Wikipedia or talking with ChatGPT. Learning is naturally also different from other activities such as designing a building or running a business. But to some degree, the best way to learn is to be a practitioner, to be a university administrator, for example, especially if you want to better understand important concepts such as rationality and reasonableness, and the important difference between, for example, the ideas of moral justification and moral motivation, or between issues concerning what I'm supposed to do and what I'm going to do. Among the things I have hopefully learned most about here at NYU Shanghai, together with you, are concerned with particularly 2 questions. On the one hand, how to get the most out of the resources available to us. On the other hand, how to avoid turning our advantages into our disadvantages. Mentioning the rich resources available to us at NYU Shanghai, we may easily think of the online and offline academic resources of our school, including our wonderful new campus, including its wonderful facilities for science, sport, and art. These are certainly very precious and important resources. But the most important resource, in my view, is your unlimited potential for personal development you brought to us when you enter NYU Shanghai. The potential that has made the job of your professors and your adult 同学 so meaningful and so honorable. At this moment, when you are leaving your developmental stage as undergraduate students, their class of 2023, I urge you to do a great favor for the school and for me personally by continuing to make the most of this potential on your own after you leave this campus. Compare with the question of how to get the most out of the resources available to us. I'm even more concerned with the question of how to address the risk of our advantages being turned into disadvantages. If Goethe was right when he said, "Those who know nothing of foreign languages know nothing of their own." If Rousseau was right when he said, "Whoever has seen only one people does not know man. He knows only the people with whom he has lived." Or if Confucius was right when he said, "Is it not pleasant to have friends coming from afar?" The advantages of NYU Shanghai as a Sino-foreign collaborative university where students graduate fluent both in English and in Chinese, and where students spend their university lives together with their cheating fellows from countries all over the world, is almost next to none in helping a young person to become a citizen of the world rooted in his or her own cultural tradition. But this kind of advantage will not materialize automatically. Without the great efforts from all members of us, there will remain advantages in theory but not in practice. Being a student of an international school, for example, not to speak of being a student from other countries, can easily become an excuse for knowing too little about the school's host country or the local community. Similarly, being a student of an international school, not to speak of being a native student from a particular country, can easily become an excuse for knowing too little about the outside world. Theoretically speaking, an international school like NYU Shanghai was designed to help students to better understand both their native countries and their other parts of the world. Or borrow a phrase from John Stuart Mill, a British philosopher of the 19th century, to help students not to only know their own side of the question. That's a quote from his very famous book on liberty. But again, an advantage in theory is not necessarily an advantage in practice. And in my role as the Chancellor of NYU Shanghai, if I have really learned something in these years, my duty is to do my best, together with my colleagues and all of my 同学 in the school, to turn our theoretical advantages into practical ones. And here is one more plea from me to you, my dear students of the class of 2023. I hope you will continue to do your best after this ceremony to show to yourselves as well as to other people that NYU Shanghai has successfully taught you how to make constant efforts to know better and better both sides of any relevant question, from both sides of the golden-silver shield in the story, my favorite story, Jin Yin Dun, to both sides of those international affairs that are developing day and night and will affect every one of us and even every one of our fellow human beings in the future. Talking about the future of humanity, we can never exaggerate the importance of a school like NYU Shanghai as an international learning center, and the importance of a group of people like NYU Shanghai graduates as both the beneficiaries and the promoters of human learning at the international level. While in recent years, some people like to talk about that part of the human history where, I quote, 11 of 15 cases since 1500, the year of 1500, where a rising power emerged to challenge a ruling power, war occurred. I rather prefer to quote from another British philosopher, Bertrand Russell, who, in the same book in which he predicted more than 1 century ago that China is capable of being the greatest power in the world after the United States. He had another kind of historical narrative. He said, contacts between different civilizations have often in the past proved to be landmarks in human progresses. Greece learned from Egypt, Rome from Greece, the Arabs from the Roman Empire, medieval Europe from the Arabs, and the Renaissance Europe from the Byzantines. That's his historical narrative, which I like best. Here, but Russell appears to be talking about a more or less one-way learning. But learning between different countries in our times does not need to be only one way. It can and should rather be mutual and reciprocal. The key point is this: from mutual and reciprocal learning processes, like the ones practiced and promoted here at NYU Shanghai, there comes no zero-sum game. I have to stop here. After all, at this moment, your learning experiences and your learning achievements should be the focus. All I want to share with you is, in addition to my most sincere congratulations, is my most sincere hope that you will have a future as lifelong learners and promoters of the lifelong learning for the people you have the honor to serve in the future, and that you will constantly prove the value of having studied at NYU Shanghai thereby. Thank you all for your attention. Thank you.